Hey guys, we're going to hear the parable of the Pharisee and the Publican. I'm going to go through it once, reading through here, and then we're going to go through it again and looking at it in another light. Okay. And he, Jesus, spake this parable unto certain which trusted in themselves that they were righteous and despised others. Two men went up into the temple to pray, the one a Pharisee and the other a publican. The Pharisee stood and prayed thus with himself, God, I thank thee that I am not as other men are, extortioners, unjust, adulterers, or even as this publican. I fast twice in the week. I give tithes of all that I possess. I. And the publican, standing afar off, would not lift up so much as his eyes unto heaven, but smote upon his breast, saying, God, be merciful to me, a sinner. I tell you, this man went down to his house justified rather than the other. For everyone that exalteth himself shall be abased, and he that humbleth himself shall be exalted. All right, we're going to read through this again. And he spake this parable unto certain which trusted in themselves, that trusted in their ability to outwardly keep the outward cup cleaning the outside of the cup. They thought they were righteous and they despised others. All right, two men went up into the temple to pray. The one, a Pharisee. In other words, a legalist. In other words, those legalists in the institutional churches who love to beat the sheep. And the other, a beaten sheep. The legalist, the one who loves beating the sheep, stood up and prayed thus with himself, God, I thank thee that I'm not a homosexual. I thank thee so much that I don't even struggle with same-sex attraction, that I am not a drunkard, that I haven't murdered anybody, that I honor my parents, that I have not said anything to any superiors that I shouldn't have. That, I haven't stolen from anyone. I haven't cheated on my spouse. I fast twice in the week. I give tithes of all that I possess. I give to charity. And the beaten sheep, standing afar off, would not lift up so much as his eyes unto heaven, but smote upon his breast as he agreed with God's judgment on all of creation, on all of his flesh, the totality of who he was and who he is apart from the vine, Jesus, even the seemingly good parts of his flesh, saying, God, be merciful to me, a sinner. See, the beaten sheep, we have agreed with God's judgment on the flesh, on the totality of who we are, even our seemingly good parts, even our seemingly good intentioned desire to please God, to try to do all this outward stuff, to try to earn so-called favor with God. We've agreed that God doesn't even acknowledge any of that. And besides, I would have to ask this legalist, have you ever looked at someone else with thoughts you shouldn't have thought? Well, then you've cheated on your spouse. Have you ever looked at someone that you thought wasn't worthy to be saved, or regardless of whether this certain person said they believed the gospel, but because of their lifestyle, well, they can't be saved because they live a certain lifestyle. Well, whatever hate you've had, you've committed murder. We tend to look at sin on a sliding scale, just as Cain did. Cain thought his brother Abel was a useless eater. Anybody see the TV show Man in the High Castle? Yeah. Okay, so yeah, Cain considered Abel to be a useless eater. Worthless. Totally unproductive, totally counterintuitive, because Abel watched sheep and they didn't even eat meat back then. But Abel understood the gospel. And he knew that the blood of the blood of an animal pointed towards the hope of the seed of the woman who would shed his blood for humanity. Abel understood that without the shedding of blood, there was no remission of sin. Jesus called Abel a prophet. And the spirit of prophecy is nothing other than the testimony of the record that God has of his son, Jesus Christ, in the word. Prophecy is the testimony of Jesus Christ. So God doesn't look at sin on a sliding scale like we do. We tend to look at sin, oh, homosexuality, that's irredeemable. There's just no way. And we look at our seemingly hidden sins, oh, I just said a little white lie is not a big deal. It's all sin. It all had to be condemned at the cross. And those of us who look at sin on a sliding scale, we have not agreed on God's judgment on ourselves. We haven't agreed with the killing power of the cross for all sin. The ground is level at the foot of the cross. Sin is sin. God doesn't look at sin on a sliding scale. He did away with it all. All right, guys, be blessed.